Yo, what an insane chapter. Peak One Piece with Luffy crushing an elder, Pirate King Roger, Shanks, Dragon, Buggy, and every hype character that will be a major figure in the final war making an appearance, including Shanks' evil Figureland twin brother. So you gotta make sure to stay tuned for this bit of Peak One Piece. Chill or parking within and smash that like button if you enjoy seeing One Piece videos like this one on the channel and want to keep them coming. Make this the video you join the Nakama by subscribing and hitting that notification bell so you don't miss future One Piece videos and updates. And now, without further ado, let's jump into it, spoilers and all. So last chapter we left off at a crazy point where Saturn was in front of Bonney and Kuma on the ship. Mercury and Dune Worm Peter were facing off against their ancient giant robot, and the Straw Hat ship was successfully flying through the air, making its escape thanks to Atlas's epic sacrifice, which slowed down Nushiro just enough. Epic stuff, epic cliffhanger, and it brings us to this chapter called The Wave of the Era, and we're told the phrase was used by Roger, the Pirate King, in the past, so perhaps it's not surprising we'll get some more of him in this chapter. As the last chapter foreshadowed as well, when everyone around the world was shocked by learning that his true name was Gold D. Roger because the government tried to make everyone think it was Gold Roger, trying to downplay that whole Will of D thing. Oda also helps explain why Roger didn't tell the world the truth in this chapter, which we'll get into. The color spread this time around includes a giant Nami, which I'm always on board for. Love Nami. She takes up almost all the color illustration, and we get smaller illustrations of the rest of the crew that surround her as they're enjoying summer foods like ice cream, watermelons, and so on. So this chapter starts with Saturn attacking Bonney and Kuma with his poisonous legs. The giants though put their shields together to block the attacks. Saturn at this point is like the most hated man in One Piece and definitely the most hated character of this arc. After everything he's done, again he's trying to hurt Bonney and Kuma. But on the bright side, I have been saying that I want him to get his just desserts in this arc, and oh boy does Oda ever deliver. Luffy looks around and he sees that Bonney has transformed into her own sun god form again. As we know, even launching one attack in this form exhausted her, but she knows she has to bring her A game if she wants to get her revenge against the most hateable Saturn. She tries to get up, but she's understandably exhausted. We get one of, if not the biggest flexes in this arc though with Luffy. So there have been times where Luffy was less effective against the elders, like when he couldn't hurt Mercury and his sturdiness, and there have been times when he has been more effective, like when he sent Mars blasting off again, like Team Rocket with the help of his crew. He always seemed to be trying though, in his own goofy way. Here, he has the confidence to not go all out against Saturn. In fact, he purposely punches one of Saturn's attacks away from Bonney, but he refuses to attack Saturn himself. He says, and I quote, "Bonney, you're the one who must do it," end quote. Now, for the story, I agree with Luffy. It would be super satisfying for her to play a part in defeating Saturn after everything he's done to her and her family. I love a good revenge story as much as anyone, but I never thought Luffy would toy around with an elder like this and keep stringing him along until Bonney could finish him. Like, think about it. He's so confident in his power at this point that he's not at all worried about being able to stop every one of Saturn's attacks for as long as it takes Bonney to step up. Such a flex, and wow, after this, the balance of power between the Straw Hats and the Elders has definitely shifted in my mind. I'm happy that Oda actually gave Luffy and the crew a chance to shine against the Elders rather than just having them escape for dear life. And it makes more sense if the series is really wrapping up, because obviously there are bigger fish to fry than these guys like Emu, Blackbeard, and so on, so we can't get too dragged down by the Elders no matter how hype and strong they've been. Back to the chapter, and after Luffy pumps up Bonney, she looks at Saturn angry, and finally she gets up and floats in the air ready to fight. We cut to Vegapunk, who is finishing off his speech, and yes, if you can believe it, he's still going, and the Elders with all their power and might have yet to stop the broadcast. Another victory for Vegapunk, who planned things well enough so that his broadcast made it this far, despite the strongest organization in the world, meaning the world government, trying to stop it desperately, not to mention York, the Vegapunk traitor, also helping them out. He says that the day will come again where we get the same incident that occurred during the Void Century happening in the present, because the quote-unquote weapons, probably meaning the ancient weapons, that caused the disaster still remain intentionally in this world. He already revealed that Joy Boy made sure these weapons were passed down, and that's why he wasn't sure if Joy Boy was good or evil. But when you think about where the world is now in One Piece, with the world government being so unjust, it's clear to me that he wanted to make it possible for people to rise up and fight back, dragon style. And the ancient weapons can at least give hope to the weaker oppressed side. While Vegapunk is saying this about the ancient weapons, we see Vivi and Shirahoshi, aka Ancient Weapon Poseidon herself, reacting. We also cut to Skypiea where Konis and Isa arrive to the palace to greet the Wiper group. We're told that all of them are unaware of Vegapunk's broadcast. And I guess it is realistic that we've gotten multiple character updates at this point of people who are not following the broadcast, even though obviously most of the world is following it and knows what's going on. So Vegapunk mentions the ancient weapons, but he also says, and I quote, "because the heirs of the races that were to be erased from history still remain." And I love this part. Despite the world government's best efforts to erase the past and their discrimination, people like Buccaneer, Kuma, and Lunarian King are still kicking, in a way at least. And we see Kuma during this part on the Elbaf ship, and then a flashback of his conversation with Vegapunk about Buccaneers. Then we see Marco thinking about Whitebeard when he talked about the land of gods that exists in the Red Line. We see King 2 thinking about the Lunarians. He's alive but bandaged in a dark room. Finally, we see Pudding in a cell. She remembers her own childhood when children messed with her for having 3 eyes. Even if many didn't make it, it's nice to see the heirs, as Vegapunk called them, still being players in this global game for power, and they'll still potentially help take down the world government that hunted their people before all is said and done. We then cut back to the Elbaf ship, where Luffy's flexing gets even more extreme. Saturn is still trying to attack Bonney, but Luffy blocks all of his attacks. What a legend he is, what an insane bounty he'll deserve after this, no doubt. Bonney then remembers the first time Saturn and Kuma saw each other in God Valley, cause remember, she accessed Kuma's memory bubble, so she knows. She remembers Ginny too when Bonney was a baby, and when Saturn told Bonney he was the one that subjected her mother to experiments. It's outlining again what's been bubbling up throughout this arc. The tragedy of Kuma, Ginny, and Bonney, and the cruelty of Saturn. This is another way you know this arc is wrapping up, because Oda is actually addressing this stuff. It's actually all coming to a head. Bonney finally screams, "How dare you do all that to my dad and mom? There is no way you guys are gods." But God does exist. An epic line right there. We see reactions of Sentomaru and Kizaru, interestingly. While Bonney is talking, Kizaru is still lying down, giving us nothing but another ... bubble. So I think it's pretty safe to say at this point that if Kizaru really wanted to help the elders, he could have gotten up by now. I feel like we can pretty confidently assume after all this time has passed that he doesn't feel good about what he's done, attacking old friends and everything, and that he doesn't want to help the elders anymore for the rest of this fight at least, and hopefully for longer. Like I've said before, it would be really cool if he joined the Straw Hats, because why can't the Yellow Monkey Admiral join Monkey D. Luffy if Blackbeard got Kuzan? I mean, it's only fair. On a serious note, I don't know if that would ever happen, to be honest, but it would be a cool way to balance out the old 3 admirals. They all took a different path, one being promoted, one joining Blackbeard, and then one joining Luffy. Just saying, would be very cool. Bonney remembers Kuma talking about Nika while she shouts at Saturn in tears. She remembers Kuma saying he will definitely come to save you. Again, we see Sun God Nika being used to give the oppressed hope. And for Bonney, Luffy has answered that prayer or prophecy, whatever you want to call it. Bonney continues saying, "and heroes do exist." She adds, "I really wanted us 3 to live together. I even thought I wanted to die if I end up alone." Very sad to hear her say that, especially when you remember that Bonney is only 12 and still a kid, but her monologue here is building up this climax of the arc beautifully, and the payoff will be gold, just wait for it. She imagines a life where she is a baby living with both Kuma and Ginny. Kuma and Ginny in this alternate reality say, "Bonney, thank you for being born." Such a bittersweet what-if scenario, because of course we know it could never be, no matter how nice it is to think about, and that is the fault of this monster right in front of her, who still wants to take more from her. Bonney finally says, but I live on because the two of them wish me to. Saturn interjects with a classic, "You damn insects." And then we get an epic double page spread with Bonney and Giant Luffy preparing to do a combo attack again, this time against Saturn. So I like this. Bonney gets the help, but it's not her doing it by herself because she obviously shouldn't be strong enough to solo Saturn. While this is happening, Vegapunk's message continues. He says, "When the disaster comes, please take care of yourself. I believe in the wisdom of mankind. I believe in science." This time we see Iceberg, Judge and Caesar having an argument, and Nami's tutoring with Area, Herodis's reaction. At the Egghead shore, Emmet, our ancient giant, is still facing Dune, Worm, Peter, and Warcury. We then get a second epic double spread. Oda is really spoiling us with this chapter. This isn't even the final double spread. We see Luffy and Bonnie's combo attack. She punches Saturn's face with a giant punch while Luffy in his giant form behind her punches the rest of Saturn's body. Oh god, this is so satisfying. Bonnie's attack is called Nika Punch of Liberation, an epic name, and in a way, this moment is helping to liberate her from the traumatic past. So the name works in multiple ways. Saturn's body is blown to pieces. His body is full of holes, and the pieces start falling into the sea. All the giants cheer the seeming victors, Bonney and Luffy. Even Kuma seems like he is smiling a little, which is the most gratifying of all the details. Bonney finally lets go and cries. Luffy laughs and says, "We blew him away. Hey Bonney, you did great." What an amazing finish to this arc before the escape. Absolutely loved it, and it hyped up Luffy while also giving Bonney her much deserved closure. Now the Thousand Sunny is about to fall near the Elbaf ship, and we see Usopp, Chopper, Jinbei, and Zoro. Vegapunk continues. He says, "The death of legends like Roger and Whitebeard are merely the opening curtain for the new age, for those who can no longer be stopped. Those people are the ones closest to the truth. Maybe Roger set the trigger for it to be this way from the start." End quote. And again, that is a possible defense for Roger not telling the world what he learned. One, as mentioned before, was he thought it might not make a difference. And here we have the possibility raised that he did his best to set things in motion so that the good would prevail in figures like Luffy. I think that's what Oda is getting at, even if people like my brother Animac will still no doubt be upset with Roger until we get all of the answers. Then we get a flashback of Roger's speech before he was executed all the way back in chapter numero uno, number 1. We get that epic moment recontextualized after how far we've come. He says, "My treasure. It's yours if you want it. Try and find it. I left all the world had to offer in that one place." End quote. Vegapunk though says something important. He says, "But it's not certain that the person Joy Boy hoped for will be the one who will get his hands on that." End quote. So it seems like rather than being certain, Joy Boy and perhaps Roger were hopeful. They hoped that someone like Luffy would come and win. But there are others in search of that treasure and power. And to reflect that, we see Hachinosu, where all the pirates are growing restless, waiting for Teach's return. They want to set sail already. In Sabaody, Rayleigh got drunk and fell asleep. Shaki says, "Ray-san, you will catch a cold staying like this." And if you watching have a good answer, let me know why you think the Dark King is drinking himself to sleep like this in the comments. We then see the legend himself, Shanks, getting drunk like Rayleigh. The red hair pirates say, "Boss, you drank too much." Shanks replies, "Shut up, I did not drink." That was my best drunk impression, sorry if it sucked. And it's spelled like he's definitely drunk saying it. We even see the final Yonko, aka we see Cross Guild. All the men are in awe because, of course, Buggy has a deep connection to the true history. They're excited. We see Crocodile and Mihawk staring in silence. They look annoyed as usual at Buggy, while Buggy is in shock saying, huh? We then see other major players in this final great war. We see Marine HQ submarines start saying they need to go and get it before anyone else does, meaning the One Piece, I assume. So the final race/war for the One Piece is going full steam ahead right now. Then we return to Vegapunk's closing line of the chapter. He says, "Whether it will be the one Joy Boy wished or not, the fate of the world will be decided by the one who claims it, ... In an amazing and get this third double page of the chapter, we see the final sentence Vegapunk says, along with a collage of panels with the most relevant characters in One Piece now: Monkey D. Luffy, Marshall D. Teach, Shanks, Buggy, Sakazuki, Dragon, Emu, Kobe, Kuzan, Figureland, Garling, and Sabo. Vegapunk finishes with a hype statement that echoes Roger's line that started the whole series. He says, "By the one who claims the One Piece," end quote. What an epic finish for the arc / transition into the final war or race for the One Piece. Also, and here is the evil Shanks twin part that I promised in the beginning, we see a panel with one more mysterious character in the shadows, showing us that he will be a big deal in the final stretch of the story, even if he hasn't been revealed yet. It's a mysterious man with a cape that holds a sword similar to Shanks' sword, we're told. Kind of like that one central figure that was shown in the shadows when Dragon was talking about the Holy Knights, or God's Knights. And that is the end of this epic, goosebump-inducing chapter. Now, if you got hyped by seeing all of the Yonko again in this one chapter, you don't want to miss my video on all the Yonko explained, link on screen right now. Like and subscribe for more One Piece, and I'll see you in the next one.